Africa's lost army of women, the Benin warriors. Out of the deep forests of West Africa, where kingdoms rose and fell with the beat of drums and the clash of iron, there stood one of the most powerful and sophisticated empires of the African past, the Kingdom of Benin. Known for its breathtaking bronzes, towering walls, and fierce warriors, Benin was a land where art and warfare walked hand in hand. But hidden within its history lies a story many do not know, the story of the female warriors of Benin. Women who took up arms, not just as defenders of their homes, but as guardians of the Oba, the king himself. Women who stood unshaken in the face of danger, and whose legacy still whispers through the palaces and shrines of modern-day Edo State in Nigeria. Today, we journey into their world, to uncover who they were, how they fought, and why they remain one of Africa's greatest untold stories. The Kingdom of Benin emerged around the 11th century, becoming a mighty power in the centuries that followed. It was not just any kingdom, it was a land of innovation, with a political system admired across Africa, an artistic tradition that produced the famous Benin bronzes, and a military machine that defended its people from rivals. But warfare in Benin was not left only to men. Oral traditions and palace records tell us that women, too, played a role in the defense of the kingdom. These women were not ordinary citizens. They were chosen carefully, often from noble families, sometimes from warrior lineages, and trained to guard the most sacred place of all, the royal palace. They became known as the Oba's women warriors, protectors of the throne. In times of peace, they watched over the palace gates, the courtyards, and the sacred chambers. But in times of war, they marched out alongside the men, spears in hand, determined to show that a warrior's heart knows no gender. Life as a female warrior in Benin was no easy path. They underwent rigorous training, learning to wield weapons of war, the spear, the sword, the bow, and later muskets, when Europeans brought firearms into West Africa. But their training was more than physical. The Benin people believed deeply in the spiritual side of war. Before battle, rituals were performed, charms prepared, sacrifices made. Warriors, both male and female, were taught that the gods themselves watched over the battlefield. For the women, this connection was even stronger. They were seen as carrying the dual powers of fertility and destruction, life-givers who could also become life-takers if the kingdom was threatened. This duality made them both feared and respected. The female warriors were not only defenders of the palace, they also took part in campaigns beyond the walls of Benin City. In some accounts, they joined the men in expeditions against rival towns, and in others, they stood as last-line defenders during enemy attacks. But even outside the battlefield, their presence was powerful. During festivals and rituals, they paraded alongside male warriors, a reminder that the strength of Benin rested in the hands of all its people, men and women alike. In this way, they were not only fighters but symbols, living embodiments of courage, guardians of the sacred, and proof that the destiny of Benin was protected by both sons and daughters of the land. The greatest test of Benin's warriors, male and female, came in 1897, during the tragic event known as the Benin Punitive Expedition. At this time, European powers had carved up Africa among themselves, and Britain had set its eyes on Benin. The Oba, Ovan Ramwan Nagbesai, resisted foreign interference, particularly in trade. When British officials tried to force their way into Benin's territory, they were attacked by Benin forces. Britain responded with overwhelming military power. In February 1897, thousands of British troops, armed with modern artillery and machine guns, advanced on Benin City. Against them stood the warriors of Benin, spears, arrows, muskets, and courage as their only weapons. And among these defenders were the female warriors. Accounts describe them fighting fiercely at the palace gates, refusing to abandon their king. Some are said to have wielded charms, believing spiritual forces would shield them from bullets. Others fought until the very last breath, choosing death over surrender. Though Benin was ultimately defeated, its treasures looted, its bronzes stolen, its city burned, the courage of its warriors, both men and women, became legend. The story of the female warriors of Benin did not end with that battle. Their memory lived on in oral histories, in songs, in the rituals of the Edo people. Elders spoke of them as women of unbreakable will, who carried the spirit of the kingdom in their hearts. Today, when we look at the bronzes and ivory carvings that survived the British looting, we see depictions of warriors and guards, men and women alike, standing proudly as symbols of Benin's power. Their story is also part of a wider African tradition. Across the continent, women were not confined to silence. From Queen Amina of Zaza in the north, to the Dahomey Amazons in the west, and the Benin female warriors in the south, Africa's history is filled with women who picked up the sword when duty called. The tale of the Benin female warriors is not just about war. It is about loyalty, courage, and the unyielding spirit of a people. It is about women who refused to be written out of history, who stood side by side with men in the defense of their land. And as we remember them, we also remember a lesson, that the strength of a kingdom does not rest on kings alone, nor on men alone, but on all its people, united in purpose, fearless in spirit, and willing to fight for what they love. The guns of empire silenced their voices, but not their memory. The warriors of Benin, men and women alike, left behind more than a battlefield. They left behind a legacy, a reminder that true strength is born not of weapons, but of unity, sacrifice, and love of homeland. Their story endures, whispered in the bronzes, carried in the songs, and now rising again. A story of resilience. A story of pride. A story that the world is only just beginning to rediscover.